Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for this next part of my upfront campaign, my very brief upfront campaign I should say. We are still embroiled in the first battle where an elite German force, Panzer Grenadiers really, are pressing rather hard on a squad of Russian conscripts. Now, both sides are becoming increasingly desperate. The range has closed to essentially knifing distance, and if things carry on like this, both sides might be tempted to risk a bit of infiltration and close combat. The Germans are under intense time pressure because we are nearly through the second of the four decks, and they are painfully aware that they are still battering against what is only the first of two Soviet defensive lines. For my part, my desperation is slightly different. I have placed my more numerous but somewhat less capable soldiers within very close range of the Germans, but it's it's a bit of a risk on my part. I wanted to ensure that they would not easily get enough men to relative range, well, to range chit 4 and be able to claim victory that way. If they want to win, I intend to make them fight for it. The only difficulty there is that they may well oblige me. A lot is going to ride on who gets the better shot in first, I feel. Far too many of our men are in exposed or poor terrain. Really, it's only my group on the left who are sheltering in a building. The Germans are not that much better off, but their scouting group does have better cover. Their group C is well placed on a hill. It's really just their command group, and or what's left of it, I should say, that's trying to find decent terrain. Now, when I left, it was just about to be the start of the Soviet turn, and I do have some rather hefty firing cards here. The question is, can I actually use them? And the answer is, for Group A, not encouraging. They've got 8 firepower points there. But I've only got very weak firing cards. I might as well have them spray away with those. I think at this stage in the game it might be worth trying to spread my fire a bit. The Germans have already lost 2 men killed, and thanks to the smaller size of their squads, it won't take too much pressure to put them in a very dangerous situation, because of course the elite side in this scenario does not get reinforcements. I may put in an optional rule tweaking that depending on how things play out, but for the moment, their briefing is that their one squad has to break through the two Soviet lines. So every loss I inflict on them, they're really going to feel. So I am going to have Group A try and target their Group A with this firing card to see if I can weaken them a bit. They are moving, so that brings it up to firepower 2, but they've still got the cover of the buildings they just vacated, which knocks me down to -1. Thankfully for me, they do not have any defensive concealment cards, so let's see what happens. My shots go wild and don't bother Private Schultz. And similarly, Private Wallach isn't too troubled either. Okay, so much for that notion. My center group, almost enough firepower. Aggravatingly, we are just 1 firepower point short of what we need to be able to fire the big cards at that group. And over here, we do develop 16 firepower points down there. So actually, do you know what? I will amuse German Group B with my weak firepower card. Let's see what happens. It is bumped up to 2 because they're moving in the open. So Private Bernhoff is not bothered. Private Greece is pinned. So that is a result of sorts. Maybe if I'm fortunate, I could end the battle here and now. We'll have to see. And Corporal Hessel is not bothered. So, okay, that was not a bad result. Now I'm pinning all of my hopes on the group here with their formidable. Let me just make sure I've got it right. Soloviev is crewing, so it's 8 for Borisov, plus 5 for Aliyev brings it to 13, plus 3 for Mihalov. So that makes it 16. Yes, we have a choice. I'm going to play the Firepower 6 card. -1, I forgot that last time because we're firing from a stream bank, so it's down to 5, but back up to 6 because the Germans are moving. So Private Bernhoff, okay, is not even pinned by that. Private Greece is probably going to panic out of there. Yes, Private Greece flees, which not only deprives the Germans of an LMG, it also means that Bernhoff really has nothing left to crew because the fellow he was crewing for has just done a runner. And lastly, Corporal Hessel is pinned. I will take that result because that means the German hand size is now reduced because their assistant squad leader is pinned. So no actual casualties by way of deaths, but I'm very happy with that turn because it's effectively weakened the German squad and they really do have to do something about Corporal Hessel. The question is, what can they do? They do have options, but their options are rather limited. So no terrain, which is a difficulty for them because they really want to get Schultz and Wallach into some cover. They really also do want to get Bernhoff and Hessel into cover. But there's not really anything they can do about those two. And they don't exactly want to simply stop in open ground. That might be almost as bad, really. Now, Schussel and his friends are on the hill, generating 12 firepower, which they could use to devastating effect, and they are going to ignore my higher morale group, and they're going to capitalize on being at relative range 5 to my group C. So 5 firepower, boosted to 6 because they're firing from a hill. I get no cover from the stream, but I can at least play a concealment card to bring it back down to 5. So Soloviev first is dead. Soloviev has been killed. Mihailov is pinned. Aliyev is pinned as well. And Borisov is barely all right. Okay, that was rather devastating and rather depressingly. I have to dig out a dropped rifle counter to add to the doleful of collection of discarded weapons from dead men that's littering the stream bank now. And just to be really, really evil, the Germans are also going to discard a sniper card on me. So they're going to target my group B. So the random position check yields a 3. They're aiming at Private Zaharov. And the sniper gets... Phew! That shot went wide. That was quite a formidable sniper too. So the Germans are going to draw 1 card. They are down to 4 now because Corporal Hessel is still pinned. So no prizes for guessing who's getting rallied next turn. As for us, what are we going to do? That group can't do very much still, although I've just thought of a really good way of forestalling German Group A from getting into the relative range 4 chit. I am going to send them forward. Possibly a very bold move on my part, but I think it's got to that stage in the game where boldness is required. Also, I think after the recent exchanges of fire, I can afford some losses, or at least I can afford losses a bit better than the Germans can. Now, I'm sorely tempted, because he made such a poor shot last turn, to use Group B's action to try and take out their sniper. In fact, I am going to try it. And we do it. We beat his random number check. So another counter I've got to go and dig out. But the poor German sniper's career has been rather abruptly ended, and I'm just going to give them their sniper lost counter as a reminder. And for my final group, there really isn't anything I can do. I've only got a group of high fire cards, and the only one who isn't pinned or dead is Borisov. So with the deepest regret, there'll be no shooting from me this turn. Just draw my cards and hope. The Germans, for their part, are definitely going to rally Corporal Hessel. So he's been brought back. Now the tricky question is, the Germans do have a spare movement card going, and ordinarily at this sort of range it would be really, really tempting to attempt an infiltration. I mean, streak isn't bad. Most of the men in my position C are pinned, so it may be worth the Germans trying it. Yes, they don't really have any other decent options, so they are going to go for it. So excuse any background noise. Infiltration is one of those funny things with a bazillion modifiers. So I'm going to make sure that I don't miss any, and I'm just reaching for my cheat sheet. The Germans are going to play that card to trigger an infiltration attempt by streak. Now, playing the movement card, of course, means he doesn't have to take a morale check to try infiltrating. So there are 3 men in the position, and he's drawn that card. So it's not night, no smoke, no brush, no woods. It's 1 to the right because he's infiltrating from a hill. 2 to the left because there are 2 pinned defenders. He doesn't have any concealed cards to help him out, and he's not in an infiltrated group, nor is he Japanese, nor it is a jungle scenario. By sheer amazing good fortune, it's landed him on a red one, which gives him a successful infiltration. So well done, streak, I suppose. He has successfully infiltrated my position. I'll just move him forward as a reminder. Although actually no, I don't need to, because the other group is too far away. So we have been infiltrated. This is not good. The only consolation I have is that the Germans have no further use for that sniper card, as their sniper is dead, so they're going to discard it. In fact, they'll take... No, they've taken 2 actions, so it's only the 1 discard. I suppose even elite troops have their limitations. Bit of a mixed bag, this. Maybe what they wanted, maybe not. Meanwhile, what am I to do? Still no brilliant choices. Well, they're at relative range 5, and they do generate firepower of 6 on the trot, even though they're clumsily working their bolt action rifles. I might try dropping some of the group opposing us. It's a bit of a forlorn hope because that's a weak firing card. But every little helps by this stage, I feel, and luckily for me, the Germans have no concealed cards. So the fact that they're moving boosts that to 3, but it's instantly put back down to 0 because, again, they've still got that lingering cover. So Private Schultz is not fussed by us, and neither is Private Wallach. Okay, all we've succeeded in doing is expending some time. Now I am tempted, only because of the continuing weakness of that group. Well, there's only 2 of them. It would be nice to break them, to be honest. I'm going to have Sergeant Rostov's group target his opposite numbers over there. So firepower of 4, up to 5 because they're moving. So there's a good chance here. Private Bernhoff is pinned. Corporal Hessel is most certainly not pinned. In fact, he's not in the least bit bothered by that. It's quite demoralizing, this. You pour fire at them and it doesn't seem to make them sweat. And lastly, my final group can do nothing because I don't have the rally cards. Poor old Borisov's the only one keeping his eyes over the parapet, so to speak. Not that we have a parapet, but figure of speech. So I am just going to draw 2 cards and, okay. Shame we don't quite have the oomph to actually use these. Tough decisions for the Germans now. Not really sure what they are going to be able to do. They've been very unlucky with terrain, very unlucky indeed. So they're going to stop risking their group. They could play the Rally 4 card on Bernhoff, but it might be more sensible and wiser if they just accept that Lady Luck doesn't seem to be handing them any good terrain and they really need to get on and stop parading themselves. So as minefields are a scenario-defined cower card, they're just going to hit the dirt. Now, meanwhile, thanks to Streak infiltrating our position, the Germans have enough firepower to play that card. Now, they have choices here because Streak could go in there and lay into somebody on my side in close combat, but maybe, only because close combat is a bit of a risky proposition, it might be worth them using that fire card instead. So they are going to shoot. Streak is going to contribute, so he loses his infiltrator status, but he gets the doubled firepower. So firepower of 5 against my group C. If they can finish us off, that will be a significant local triumph for them. So they're on the hill still, so it's ups to 6. My only hope is a not all that great concealed card to take them back down to 5. Let's see what transpires. Private Wahailoft is still with us, still pinned, but still with us. Sergeant Aliv has panicked. Okay, let's see what's happened to him. Yep, he has routed out of there. And Corporal Borisov. Oh dear. Oh, Corporal Borisov may be dead or wounded. Corporal Borisov is wounded. And he's actually properly wounded this time. Sorry, it wasn't Borisov who got the fake wound last time, but he's definitely wounded now. Okay, that's not helpful. That'll teach you to keep your head not to keep your head down, won't it? Okay, not great for us, not great at all, but let's see what happens. Oh, the Germans. Oh, look, finally, just as they give up on getting good terrain cards, what shows up? So over to my somewhat battered Russian force. I'm just going to do a quick count. Right, we still have 10 of our original 15 men in the squad, so our situation is not quite as desperate as the German one is, because they're down to 7 from their original 10. So it's been painful for both sides, and I'm hoping we can increase the pain level, though I'm not totally sure how we can do that in a productive way. My group A is just going to try and annoy their two opposite numbers over there. So firepower of 1, up to 2, but down to -1 because of the buildings. Private Schultz, no, he's not fussed, of course he isn't. And Wallach, oh no, Wallach's sheer force of personality, not only has he not been bothered by our attack, but he's somehow psychically persuaded one of us to break his rifle. So soldier number 4, that would be Private Zyakov, who has just suffered, unfortunately, from a bit of a weapon failure. So let me just find his rifle token. There we go. All right, not the best of rounds. They can't do anything. They don't have sufficient strength and firepower, but I am going to try and get them to entrench. And that's a bit of an epic failure. Same sad story over here where I can't really do anything with either of these men now. So I'm just going to draw my draw my replacement cards. Oh, that's a bit promising. If there's enough of us still standing next turn, we might be able to do something with that. Right, now, not surprisingly, the last moving German group is going to gratefully pile into the cover afforded by the woods. They're a bit cross that I've prevented them from reaching relative range chit 4, but I'm sure they'll get over it, especially if they're able to chip our numbers away. I think just out of desperation, really, the Germans are going to spend that rather decent card to rally Bernhoff, because he's a very decent soldier and they do need all their decent soldiers at the moment. And in the meantime, their Group C will just carry on battering away at my Group C. It's very clear they've got the upper hand now. So their strength is increased to 3 for the hill. I got no defensive cards or anything to help me, so Private Wihailoft, no, you're all right. Corporal Borisov, you are pinned. Pinned and wounded. The insults just keep piling on. And we'll see what fortune hands the Germans now. Ooh, and I've got to shuffle the deck again. Now, while I'm shuffling the deck, an observation about the time limit. A 4-card deck is quite a long game in Upfront, but for this scenario, it's amazing how desperate the time situation can get for the attacker. So in this particular case, the Germans are still trying to seize their first objective, and we have now entered deck 3, bearing in mind that in possibly rather disadvantaged circumstances, they've then got to go and fight this battle all over again in another round. It's not looking very promising for them. They really need to break me one way or another in the next couple of turns to have a hope of doing that. Either that or they're going to have to move very fast in the next scenario. The good news for me is, as much as one can have good news as the Soviet in the summer of 1942, is that even if I'm defeated now, I still have a decent remnant of my original squad counting the men who've routed out. I've been very lucky. So far, I have had 3 men run away, um, but only 2 who've actually been killed, and makes for an interesting contrast with the Germans, for whom only 1 man has fled and 2 men have been killed. So, what to do? You guys are still on the move. And I don't have any terrain. It's so annoying. I might see if Zyakov has a chance of repairing his rifle. And he does it, bless him. So we are back up to full firepower there. I will get my centre group to open fire at their opposite numbers with that card. See whether we can do any more damage. They don't have any concealed cards and they're in open ground, so I might have a decent chance at it. So firepower of 3. Bernhoff is pinned. And the good corporal is not. Well, I'll take whatever I can get, as I often say. Nothing I can do to help these poor devils down here, and as I've taken an action, I can't discard anything, so I'll just draw another. I was hoping one of those would come along soon. And not before time, because the Germans are going to start piling the pressure on, and as ever, they have options. So, their Group A is going to make life difficult for my Group A by opening fire from the woods. I have no concealment cards. I am moving, which brings their firepower up to 3, but I've still got the residual cover from the buildings, which knocks it back down to 1. But these are my weakest morale groups, so Nosenko, you're all right. Kvasnikov, you're not all right, you're pinned. Sokolov, you're all right. And Zyakov, you are also okay. All right, we did a bit better than we had a right to expect there, I think, but all to the good. See, ideally, what the German centre group would have liked to do would be to shuffle sideways and get themselves onto that hill, but with Bernhoff pinned and none of them holding rally cards, that's not brilliant. I'd also suggest it's not very advisable for Corporal Hessel to risk a infiltration, because although that would give him the strength to use that fire card, he'd still have to wait a turn, and he's trying to infiltrate a group in open terrain, from open terrain, and none of us are pinned, so everyone there is fully alert. He's probably better off staying where he is and hoping that Bernhoff will recover his nerve at some point. I mean, to be fair to Bernhoff, he's been through a lot on this scenario already. What they can do is have their Group C continue to mercilessly hammer my Group C. Or, and this is quite a powerful fire card, they could turn their weaponry on my Group B. Because, oh wait, actually, hang on. We're at relative range 4, so let's see. So 8. They could still do it. That makes more sense actually, because the my Group C has been reduced to a state of complete impotence at the moment, whereas Group B is, there's no two ways about it. It is my most powerful fire group now. So yes, German Group C, having made mincemeat of my Group C, are now going to turn their attention to Group B, and they're going to hit us with that. I have no concealment cards, and they're on a hill, so it's firepower of 5. Good call for them. Sergeant Rostov is pinned. Bad news for me. Private Yastrabov is also pinned. Okay, this is going wrong very quickly now. Private Zaharov is definitely pinned. And lastly, Private Nezevich. No, he's decided he's not going to join the pinned club. He's going to hold his ground. Well done, you. And thankfully for me, he's the guy with the only decent close range weapon. So that is a massive relief. Okay. It's not over yet. The Germans are getting those cards I need desperately. Right, slight change of plan for me in that case. Never mind the group by the stream. I am definitely rallying Rostov and Yastrzeboft. So they're done. I really can't do anything with those fellows over there. So unfortunately, the Germans have really forced me onto the back foot now. I've got no option but just sit this turn out, really. Meanwhile, they are going to use a great deal of economy. Rally 1. That should get Bernhoff back on his feet. But they're going to have to wait a bit before they can put the other bits of their plan into motion. So they're going to sit tight on what they've got for now and just draw a card. Another movement card, very handy. So my lot, it's going to be slow going again. Group A is going to pile in behind a wall. None of my other groups can really do anything, but I want to hang on to these cards because they might be useful. So I am going to just draw, see if I can unpin Zaharov. As per the Germans, I might be able to do a bit of a side shuffle and get myself into some decent cover. Let's see. The Germans are going to make a break for it because they have a nice hill they've spotted that they're going to go scampering off to. Makes sense. I don't blame them. And they... It's really tempting to send Streak in because all of a sudden knife work over there looks like it might not be a bad idea. So yes, as there's no fire cards lurking around, Private Streak is going to play that card to have a go at infiltrating us again. It worked so well for him last time. Running through the modifiers, I think he's pretty much done it, you know. Yeah, it's one right from the hill, but everybody's pinned. And yeah, he does it. He does it. So once more, the intrepid Private Streak has vanished off down the slope. Clearly up to no good. And it is all, it is all coming together for the Germans now. Okay, back to us. What on earth can we do with this lot? The answer is a whole lot of nothing. Do you know what? I am tired of this. We're never going to be able to play those cards, so I am just going to discard both of them and pray for something a bit... Oh, really? Seriously? Okay. So over to the Germans, they triumphantly occupy that hill that they wanted. Now they are on absolutely splendid terrain in a way that I am not. Now we've got... Unluckily for the Germans, they don't have enough strength to play that fire card, and they could potentially be waiting an age for a hero card to turn up. So they are going to just discard those two. I think they're fairly certain that with pinned men all over the place, we're not going to be going anywhere. So there's no point hanging around. So they are going to just refill their hand and wait on events. Now, I have just remembered, as it's the beginning of the Soviet turn, now that Borisov is wounded, at the beginning of each new deck, I have to draw a random number card for him. And if it's a black RNC, he'll be fine. If it's a red one, the assumption is his wound has worsened and he's become KIA. I should have done that on the first turn of the new deck, but I did forget. It slipped my mind. So here comes the draw. Oh no! Okay. Just to make matters even worse for me, poor old Borisov has just bled out. And that means his extremely decent LMG is lying on the mud of the riverbank, and the only person who can save the day for us by trying to recover a heavy weapon of sorts is the poor pinned Private Wyloft. I hate to say this, I think Group C is to all intents and purposes doomed. So, looking at my options, I think it's imperative that we rally Zaharov just so we get some movement options back with my Group B, if nothing else. And now I'm the one who's getting very, very concerned. I now have 9 men of my original 15. If I lose another 2, we are a broken squad. So all of a sudden it's looking a lot scarier. So much for all my confident pronouncements of earlier. And I can't really do anything with any of these yet. So I am going to just draw a card. And hope. It's a very good set of options for the Germans. The question is, who's going to have fun with this card? Well, the only group with enough firepower to fire this is Private Streak's group on the hill. They have 2 choices here. It's not very advantageous for Streak to go in and do some killing, because under the terrain capture rules, the Germans might end up occupying the stream, which they really don't want to do. It might actually be better if Streak just gives up on his infiltration of that group as a bad job. I mean, it would have been worth it to finish off Borisov a turn earlier, but now that he's dead, they can always resuppress Wyloft fairly easily if he shows himself. So they might actually refocus on my leadership and my core group. Call it my leadership group just because Sergeant Rostov's there. Yes, so they will focus on my Group B because they're still in the open and they're quite a tempting target. To be honest, spending that card on Wyloft would be a waste of ammunition. So Streak voluntarily gives up his infiltrator status. I mean, we know he's really good at it. He'll probably do it easily again the next turn if he has to. And they open fire. They've got the perfect amount at that range, relative range 4. So firepower of 4 bumped up to 5. I have no concealment cards, so Sergeant Rostov is dead. Uh-oh. Private Yastrobov is alive, thank goodness, and unpinned. Private Zaharov is pinned. And Private Nezovich is also pinned. Oh dear. I can't even say we're back to square one. We're back to some hellish place that's even worse than square one. And with, oh dear, it gets worse and worse. With Sergeant Rostov's unfortunate demise, and he's lost the only classic SVT semi-automatic rifle in the squad, I have no leadership left. My leaders are either dead, or in Sergeant Alif's case, they have fled. So my hand size will be permanently reduced after this. Rather tempted to flee, given how bad this is going. but I'm still holding out faint hope. And to be perfectly honest, every German soldier that I can down between now and the end of this phase of the battle, it would be worth doing. So I'm going to take it on the chin and not run, although I must admit my boys are perilously close to running. Incidentally, there's nothing else the Germans wanted to do. They were quite happy with that little bit of a massacre. Um, well, that completely scuppered my plan to try and find some cover. No way. It's not worth keeping those. I am going to ditch those two cards and draw only a single card now. Oh, can't even benefit from a rally on that one. Um, See, it's rather pointless me talking about withdrawing and fleeing because although the campaign rules permit you to retreat, you can retrograde move all the way back to relative range 0. And in an exception to the normal game rules, you can then attempt to flee off map, as it were. The enemy squad then has the opportunity to try pursuing you for a certain amount of time. But with pinned men, I'm not going anywhere forwards or backwards. It's a terrible, terrible state to be in. The only consolation I have is that the Germans are being strangely quiet. Now, I wonder, actually, if they do want a little bit of fun, because it really is just about hunting down some Russians now. Um, Private Bernhoff, mighty, mighty Bernhoff, with his close combat value of 10, is going to try going on a little adventure. So there's 3 men in the position he is trying to infiltrate. He is coming from a hill which nudges him to the right. But there are 2 pinned defenders. Yeah, he does it. Yep, I must say these Panzer Grenadiers know what they're doing. So Corporal Hessel has infiltrated. Um, they're not going to bother keeping the smoke or the hill card at this distance. There's not really much point. So yeah, the one action they were still permitted to discard, so they're just going to draw some new cards and hope that they draw cards that allow for butchery. Luckily for me, they don't. But I think it's only a matter of time, and I'm really just treading water, waiting for the end now, I suspect. Um, yep, I've got nothing. I really need rally cards. There's nothing I can do. In some desperation, keeping that one, I'm going to discard these 2. Call me crazy. But I think by this stage, I just want to cycle through until I get either firing cards or something that allows me to rally men and then try to retreat, maybe. Still in 2 minds about the retreating. The Germans, meanwhile. Oh, sorry, I put the infiltrator token on the wrong man. It's Bernhoff who wanted it. Hmm. Not sure what to do with these other German cards. I mean, that flank card is very tempting. I think it's to their advantage to start moving. Maybe not to put themselves in the gully, but that brush, that would give German Group C a devastating amount of firepower that they could land on me. And of course, they'll discard the gully because they probably don't have all that much use for it at the moment. Okay, someone's got a monopoly on all the movement cards. So, desperation. What can we do? We can fire at that group. It's a very tough choice. Part of me wants to target Group B, but odds are with a fire card that weak, we won't do all that much. So I'm going to try and hit the low morale Germans and pray for a miracle. So we've got firepower of 2, reduced to 0 because of the woods. And at this stage in the game, the Germans are taking no chances whatsoever, so I'm down to -3. So Schultz doesn't even notice he's being shot at. And neither does Wallach. Okay. Well, I give my boys marks for enthusiasm, but we clearly need to work on the marksmanship there. I am going to keep both those concealed cards because I think a lot of my boys' continued presence on this battlefield, alive or dead, is going to depend on me having them. Right, so really on their next turn, this turn, the Germans are just going to occupy the brush. The hill has served them very well, but by taking up this position, they have now brought my Group B under flanking fire. They might as well keep that movement card in reserve. There's not much they really want to do with it at the moment. Oh, yes, that's what they've been waiting for. For my part, in a weak gesture of defiance, I'm just going to have the same group plink away desperately at their opposite numbers in the woods. It's -1 because of the cover, and just to mock me further, the Germans are going to make it -3 again. So Schultz, again, doesn't even know anyone's shooting at him. Ooh, but Wallach does. Okay, inattentive and unimaginative as Schultz is, Wallach is pinned, and that's hopefully given them something to think about, at least on that sector. But meanwhile, all I can do is just draw another card and hope. Nah. Okay, I think death comes. But first, the Germans will have the satisfaction of rallying Private Wallach. After all, must set an example when you're supposed to be elite troops. Now, who's going to have the pleasure of murderizing us? We've got 11 firepower points thanks to Bernhoff and co. over there. We definitely have enough over there. I think the German middle group, after everything they've endured, deserves to have this one, and it allows Bernhoff to pop up and spray us horribly with rifle fire. So firepower of 4, +1 for the hill for 5. I am most certainly going to knock them back down to 4. And what happens? Yastreboff is pinned. Zaharov is fine as you can be when you're pinned. And Nizovich is also fine, although that entire group is now pinned. Okay. Could be better, could be worse. And the Germans will continue to sit on what they've got and just, oh no, tell me it ain't so. Ah, that's dangerous too. Well, I can do nothing with that except discard the brush card. I must say, my turns are feeling terribly unproductive. Oh, that will give us something to spit back with. But now it's the Germans' turn, and I dread to think what's going to happen. Just for the sheer fun of it, Bernhoff is... Oh, wait, hang on. Let's be sensible about this. Wait, 8, 9, 20. Ooh, okay. Yes, Bernhoff, just for the fun of it, is going to try infiltrating us again. And he definitely does it. So, not content with the mayhem he caused the first time, he's sneaking back in. Meantime, because they have flanked us, German Group C is going to play that formidably powerful firepower card on my Group B. I'm going to despairingly throw my concealed card onto it. 6. So Private Yastreboft is panicked and routed. And he's gone berserk. Okay. And Zaharov is also potentially routing. Good heavens, he's gone berserk as well. Okay. It looks like it's all finally got to them. And lastly, Knežević also has to make a break test. And he fails too. So all three men, I've never seen this happen before. I've seen it happen in ones and twos, but we must be in a truly bad way. Oh, so all three of us have gone berserk, and we all know what that means. The start of our next turn, we're going to madly charge our German opposite numbers, who I'm sure would only be too delighted for us to do such a moronic thing. So, what becomes of us now? Well, I think the end is nigh, but let's see what happens. I am going to have that group despairingly shoot at their opposite numbers again. It's a straight 0 as the Germans don't have any concealment cards for once. Ooh, we've pinned Schultz. Okay, we're obviously taking turns here. So Schultz is keeping his head down now. Group B enters close combat automatically with their tormentors. So Private Yastreboft picks on Private Bernhoff. Private Zaharov, going by the random position check, is also going for Bernhoff, and who they can somehow see, even though he's infiltrated them. And Knežević is also going for Bernhoff. Okay. So Yastrebov's reduced close combat value is 5. I have no concealment cards to play. He does get a bonus for the two men backing him up. Bernhoff doesn't have a concealed one either, so Yastrebov draws. Oh dear! And so does Bernhoff. Yastrebov is dead. My squad is broken at this point, but just for interest, let's see what happens. So Zaharov goes in with his backup. Bernhoff. Ooh. Bernhoff is actually killed. Amazing. Now, I believe under the Berserk rules, they have to carry on. So Zaharov will just move on to Hessel. Not quite so good. Although, humiliatingly enough, he beats Hessel as well. So that's a rather peculiar situation, really. We have a mutual break due to close combat. Actually, no, we don't. The German squad is not broken because they have enough men to remain intact, whereas my squad has broken. So although these two did extremely well, looks like going berserk did the trick for once. The Russian squad has been broken, and the Pyrrhic triumph of killing off those last two Germans is not enough to save the position, and the outer defence line has fallen. Now, what the implications of that are for the rest of this scenario, I will discuss in the next video, but I'm just going to stop with a final wrinkle I was going to build in. At the end of the first battle, which we've just reached, I was going to draw a random number, and going by the colour, if I drew black, the assumption would be that there was a significant time lag between the first and the second assaults, enough time for me to treat it as an end of day event and go through a bit of reorganization on my campaign game roster. If I draw a red random number check, then I will assume that the next German attack is thrown in at a ridiculously short time. We have no real time to react, and I'll just have to make do with what I can. Basically, the men that I have to hand. So let's see what happens. Ah, okay. German efficiency has won the day. We barely have time to draw breath and flee into the second line before the Germans have sorted themselves out and come at us again. It's going to be a desperate battle because the Germans will be coming in with their remnants and we will be holding them off with our remnants. The break values are adjusted to your new squad sizes, so us and them will be facing each other again. The question is, what's going to be left at the end of the second battle? I will leave that for the next video. Thank you very much for following me through with this one and to that very unexpectedly dramatic ending. Still not quite sure what to make of that, but there we go. A very well earned and hard fought victory for the Germans, much as it pains me to say that as the Russian player, but there we go. They did give us quite a drubbing at the end of that one. Hopefully we'll see if I can hold them off or at least slow them down in the next one. But in the meantime, thank you all very much for tuning in. I hope you found that one interesting. And as ever, if you've got any comments, observations, anything at all, really love to hear from you. My regulars, I'm always glad to see you guys. It's great to have your company. And as ever, if you're new to the channel, thank you very much for stopping by. Do have a look at some of the other videos, which I hope you'll enjoy. And I look forward to seeing all of you next time. Bye for now.